I am joined right now by Jeffrey, who's going to help me talk about the latest They Might Be Giants album, and it's I Like Fun. Jeffrey, welcome to the Guitar Pick. It's good to have you, buddy.
Love to be here. Long-time listener. Well, actually, short-time listener. But point where it's standing.
Jeffrey has been one of our patrons for a good long time. Thanks a bunch for your support there, Jeffrey. And he and I keep talking about music a lot, and we've been talking a lot about this album, and I could think of nobody better than Jeffrey to help me talk about this album. And eventually, and I know we haven't posted any in quite a while, but for the 15 people who care about the TMBG series that I've been doing with my stepdad, Jeff, we'll get to this eventually, but I don't think Jeff's had a chance to listen to it yet, and I didn't want us to necessarily both review it before we, review it later. So I thought we'd see what Jeffrey had to say about it, and let's go ahead and jump right into it. So Jeffrey, I am my feelings about this album are evolving and morphing, and it's one of those things that, like I've told you before, it's one of those Giants albums that is kind of growing on me like a fungus. So I'm having a spine kind of situation with it before I'm having a Join Us kind of experience. So Join Us never caught on for me. I never got the spark with that. I don't get that album. Spine I eventually came to really love and appreciate, but completely despite itself, or I guess just like I didn't get it right away, and I had to really live with it for a long time. It's that kind of you asked me to review the Wilco documentary, and they talk about that a lot with that band. The idea that that's music that you have to live with for a while before you can really fully appreciate it and get it. And I kind of think I Like Fun has that, but I also don't think it has like a cohesive sound. I think each of the tracks, for the most part, with the major exception of the title track, which I still don't like at all, they're all growing on me in their own ways. But I feel like it's that dial-a-song thing that they were doing before. I don't know that this should be an album. I don't think it really has a cohesive beginning, middle, and end. What do you think?
Well, they are releasing it as Dial-A-Song tracks. I'm not sure if you...
I didn't know that. Have they been doing that?
Well, they started up Dial-A-Song at the end of last year, I believe, with I Left My Body. And that's how that song came out. And that's out. And every other week, they've been doing this. And I don't know where this came from, but
okay, well, that changes,
ask me how I got it.
That changes everything for me. But go ahead.
So every other week, it's a track from I Like Fun, which is, now that the album's released, kind of tedious to do, and then a track from a project apparently called The Escape Team,
Weird.
Which is a comic book.
I've got to get my hands on that. That's really... I didn't know about any of this. Okay. Geez. Jeffrey's got a big... He's got a big leg up on me right now. I didn't know about any of this stuff. That artwork is really interesting because it looks like the Istanbul video.
I haven't had a time to really get into it, but I can see where you're coming from with that.
Well, just seeing a couple of panels, like that's what the artwork looks like. Okay, so so they were doing the Dial-A-Song releases before a couple of albums that they put out recently before their kids thing, and even some of the Dial-A-Song things were on that also. But as I understood it, the idea with those albums were they're basically just a collection of songs that weren't written to be on an album. Is this backwards? Is this they made an album and then they're just releasing it as Dial-A-Song track? Because that's not is good. But if it's the other thing, if it's they release these all as separate things, not intending it for it to be an album, and then they just put it together, I can get behind that more.
Well, they haven't commented really, but what I think is, because they didn't do anything last year really musically,
right?
I think they might have saw what they did originally with Glean, Y, and
I can't remember the other one.
Phone Power.
There it is. Thank you.
With those three albums, I think they were just like, okay, so we're going to do this again. Should we kill ourselves like we did the last time all over, or should we just record an album's worth of material and then release it over Dial-A-Song so we're not stressing for time later in the year when we're on tour?
Okay,
maybe that'd be why, but I don't know their headspace.
I think Glean and Fun Power are overall better albums, and even looking at them as an album with the choices they made for what songs to put where, than this. And I think that model of just writing like a song a week or a song every couple of weeks, I think really works for them. I think doing this all together as an album again, I think kind of hurt it a little bit. Because like I said, a lot of the individual tracks I'm liking better than I did the first time I heard it, but most of that dialogue stuff I liked minute one.
Yeah, that's actually when I got into the Giants, when they did that first. I remember calling in a few times and just listening to those tracks, but I can't remember which ones they were. I think maybe I heard Answer at one point.
Yeah, well, and like they were calling it Dial-A-Song, but it wasn't the Dial-A-Song service. It was just they were posting videos on YouTube, and I think there were like a couple of places where it showed up. But
they still have the call.
They brought it back though. They used to not have it.
Okay.
They dropped it back in the early 2000s for a real long time. I know they recently brought it back, but I think even when they were calling this thing Dial-A-Song, it wasn't actually Dial-A-Song.
Interesting.
Was the understanding I had of it, but anyway, so but go ahead and weigh in. So did you have my experience with it, or did you love it right away, or is it growing on you? What do you think?
I really liked the song "I Left My Body," and that was because I heard that live when I saw them on New Year's Eve, and they really knocked that out of the park. And it's just Flanzy just like going. He's like not going crazy, but he's just like angry kind of on the guitar.
Yeah.
But when I heard, and this is sort of summation of how I feel about the album in general. So the stuff I love. And then when you get the disappointment, like I had on Last Wave, that was just like, what are you doing? Like, it's not bad, but like you brought in a trumpet player and the song is not quite, it's got kind of a nonsensical part of it, which is interesting. What's more interesting is how they wrote that song. Allegedly, the Walk This Way video with Run DMC and Aerosmith.
Yeah.
Apparently they put it on mute and wrote lyrics over that video.
Oh, that's really cool. See, I haven't actually looked into this. I just listened to the album a bunch of times. Yeah.
There's a demo that they made a video that's just that music video. That's just the Walk This Way music video. And they play it in concert. They don't play Last Wave as a song, but they show the video and it syncs up perfectly. All those weirds, like saw that in a movie. I just fixed up the summer, whatever. Like it's all, and it's kind of, that's like, it's interesting, but it's just like, as a song, it's an experiment, but it's not a good song.
Yeah. So here's the thing with Last Wave. I didn't think anything of that the first time I heard it, and it's grown on me a little bit. That's actually one of those that I'm starting to appreciate more. I don't think they recorded it right. I think that is classic Lennell writing, lyrically. And by the way, there's a real kind of depressing, morbid tinge throughout that album that is, again, real classic to the Giants, but like they laid it on real thick here. It's like John Henry all over again. Like it's real. It's real depressing, and you can tell like it reads like we're getting older, so we're writing more about death. Like that's how it really reads to me. And there's a lot of like near-death experiences, and there's a lot of like speakers singing about being dead, being corpses already, and like I think Last Wave on paper is a great song, lyrically, but you're right. Like instrumentally, it's a little bit weird. But my wife pointed out something which I hadn't put my finger on, and I think she's right about it. Lennell shouldn't have recorded that in a studio. He sounds bored.
Yeah, I agree, and it's definitely even more of a kind of a problem by it's amplified by the fact that they still haven't played that song live.
That's really interesting.
Because they just showed the music video.
Because I kept imagining that song live, and Sarah even said, like, I bet this is great live, but Lennell doesn't sound like he wants to be there. And it's like some of that factory showroom problem. There's some stuff. There's some stuff on that. Wow, and then we're not even going to get, because we're going to see him in March. They're not even going to play it. Wow. What do you think? Let's go there. What do you think are the most concert-worthy songs? Especially because you've heard some of this in concert now.
Concert-worthy songs. I Love My Body.
Obviously, I thought that just listening
Lake
to
Monsters, I think, could be really juiced up live.
Yeah, probably.
If you dial the weirdness up, I think you can really get stuff out of it that isn't on the recording.
Yeah,
that's just me.
That's not one of the better tracks, but then that weird melody at the beginning that comes in and out of it has been in my head all week, and I'm starting to dig on that a little bit. That strikes me as a song that Flanzy would probably love playing live, and I could come around on and like live in a way I don't care for the recording as much. I have that with a lot of Flanzy stuff. I used to not like Drink from Mint Car, and then I heard it live. I think that's a great song now.
Classic. Only live, though. There's one song.
What else?
Actually, there's two songs I never want to hear them. I don't want to hear them play live. One they've actually started, and I think it's a song you kind of like.
Yeah.
But The Greatest is just such a
I don't want that
pointless.
No, I don't like that song.
The only good thing about that track is they made a music video with Nick Offerman.
Oh, okay.
For that song, and it's just him miming the words, and it's amazing. It's incredibly it is one of the creepiest music videos I've ever seen.
That just struck me as
doll.
That just struck me as Flanzy going back to his I'm playing with sound. I'm trying to make a track that sounds like it was recorded 100 years ago. Like he likes to do those kinds of tracks. I wish he would compensate by making them more musical, because whenever he does that, they're just not fun to listen to a lot of the time.
Well, a lot of that old stuff isn't fun to listen to. I went back and was downloading archives from these Thomas Edison recordings on Shellac Records.
Yeah.
A lot of them are not, even the voice recordings, Theodore Roosevelt, you listen to him and he's just sort of grating because it doesn't sound good.
Now, I will
better backing band.
The big exception is Edison Museum. That worked. That song is great, but that's the only one.
I meant literally. I meant the actual man, Thomas Edison.
Oh no, I know. It's just.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I'm thinking about what I said a minute ago. I'm like, well, no, wait. There's one that really works, but any other time he's done,
I still haven't heard that one.
That's on no.
So you have one up on me.
Yeah, well, and you got in with later stuff, which I'm sure gives you a really interesting perspective on them, because like I said the other day when I was telling you my thoughts on this album, I think we're in this weird kind of postmodern Giants period. There is, I said I don't think this album has a real cohesive sound, and I stand by that, but overall, what they've been doing since this kind of new Dial Song period is in some ways harkening all the way back to the beginning, and in some ways sounds like nothing they've ever done before. And you can point to bits and pieces where it's like, this kind of reminds me of a Spine track, and this kind of reminds me of I don't know, like a Flutter Pink album track. But by and large, you can't peg it. It's not like a whole album sounds like a whole other album.
Okay. Are you ready for the track that I cannot? And I'll explain why it's not like a bad song.
Yeah.
And it's grown on me, but there's just something about it. The Bright Side.
What about it?
I cannot. It sounds like a really exciting, it reminds me of a specific later career Daniel Johnston song called Love Not Dead. That's just like this driving thing, but also poppy. But it sounds like you're putting it on, and then someone in the car was just like, oh, let's just lower the volume down. And it's at a volume level where it just sounds like it just sounds muted.
So it's like a production problem where it's like it's like just the way they decided to record it isn't working.
To me, it just sounds like this is supposed to be this big song, and it sounds like you clipped all of it. You just clipped it.
Flanzy can sound kind of whispery sometimes like that, where you can tell he's not like whispering, but there's something kind of whispery about it. Like I totally get what you're saying with turning the volume down. I guess it is like that. I hadn't thought of that.
When the drums kick in, it's like someone went like, okay, that's enough.
Yeah.
To me.
But it's an okay track. That's another thing that I imagine is maybe a little bit better live. I also think it's funny I'm saying this because I don't think that's a great track, but it sounds like a last track to me. Like I almost think that should have been at the end of the album.
if you made it darker, I imagine, yeah. But before I say something, there's thematically a through line. I'm not sure if you might have noticed it, but there's a lot of prescription pain medication on this album.
I didn't notice that.
It may or may not be on I Left My Body. It's definitely on I Like Fun, which I think there's an aspect of I Like Fun that's kind of about it's. I don't think it was written that way, but the music video is about addiction in a way that like
I haven't looked at
you hear the parkour, but it's about being in line kind of to pick up your pain pills and then just doing this stupid thing and killing yourself. That's what the song. Wow. That's kind of, in the dumbest terms, that's how I read.
It's the darkest they've been overall in a real long time.
Yeah. And just another small detail that the mellotron on it, the
yeah.
That I'm not sure if you know him, Jack Bruce.
Huh.
Cream. Sunshine of Your Love. The bassist for Cream had a mellotron and he just recorded like his voice on it, and that's his voice.
That's really interesting.
So that's just, it's another example of, okay, so you're doing something interesting and it's a great experiment, but it's not a great song. And once again, you have a great trumpet player who's worked with Bruce Springsteen and you're just kind of letting him go to waste.
Yeah, sure. And again, like I think the last minute and a half of that song is better than the rest of the track. Oh yeah,
definitely.
That stuff. It's weird because sometimes I feel like, well, if a song gets stuck in my head enough that I'm humming it, can I no longer like it? Like doesn't that mean that there's something about it that is starting to speak to me in some way, or is it just? Can you be like really earwormy and bad? And I think you can. But that song,
the bright side stuck in my head.
I think it's. I think I Like Fun for unless you can think of a good reason, is kind of for no reason screwing with you a lot. Where it keeps doing that. It kind of seems like it's just having fun messing with you, and maybe you're supposed to put yourself in that headspace because it's supposed to be a drug-induced thing where you're. Where like the music keeps dropping out and coming back and dropping out, and like Flanzy likes doing that, but I've never heard that many times in a song.
I can't get a read on it. Like I've watched interviews.
It's walking a line between irritating and interesting.
It doesn't feel like a 3-minute long song, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, and it's not, right? Like it kind of ends and then just trails off a lot. With the instrumental stuff at the end, which is better than the rest of the song. So the trailing off is better than the song, and that's when you know it's not musical enough.
It reminds me of a better Wilco song called Piebald and Sweet, and that album written while the two main people in the band filled with painkillers.
Interesting.
So it sounds exactly the same, and it has the same thing where it's 2 verses, and then it goes and there was a 3rd verse, and it's this instrumental filled with horns kind of outro. But I can really go on and on about the album. Just point me in a direction and I'll go.
Sure. Yeah. So tell me if you agree with this statement. All Time What is the best thing on this album?
No.
Interesting. Okay. What do you think?
Well, All Time What is good. It just feels like an outtake to me. Because I know it's an outtake.
Okay.
It's an outtake of a song called Completely Your Blues.
See, you just know.
And that sounds way more. I'm sorry. That sounds way more interesting if you just had the Completely Your part.
Oh no, not at all. I'm just saying, like, it's impossible not to have a different perspective when you have all this knowledge. Like, I'm not, admittedly, like, I'm not a music guy. I know the stuff.
I am a god.
Oh no. But anyway, so no, go ahead. So what is the best thing on the album?
I would, at this moment, I'm kind of pulling for Push Back the Hands. And I just have that more from a personal connection.
The more I've listened to it, the more I've started to fall in love with that song. Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's really good.
Well, I'm not, because when I had my car accident a while ago, I keep bringing it up recently, kind of because of this song. But I was listening to They Might Be Giants, and my They Might Be Giants CD broke, and I haven't been able to listen to the song dead without getting a tightness in my chest. And now it's this like kind of ironic, like almost disco song. It sounds like the last album Arcade Fire did called Everything Now, where it's super disco and it's not that good.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like it sounds better than anything on that album. And you get all these images in your head, and it's just this. I feel like it's a great merge of what they can do with this day and age, with just some classic things. But in terms of just like being a good track and a good single, I think All Time What is the best. It's the best single on the album.
Yeah. I mean, that's the reason I guess I'm saying I love it. And that was one of the songs they released before the album came out, and I already really liked it. So like that skews your perspective too, because you're not hearing it in the context with the rest of it if you want to look at it as a piece. But with Push Back the Hands, that is some, again, classic Linnell writing lyrically, and I think it's really clever. I think it's really haunting in its way, and like you said, it's got a lot of really intense visceral images that kind of get stuck in your head. I think that track is wonderful. The more I've listened to it, it didn't do anything for me the first time around. I'm not really sure why, but like the more I've listened to it,
it didn't either for me.
Interesting.
I heard the intro and I was just like, Mint Car again.
Wrecks are a common theme a little bit with the Giants. There's not a ton of it, but there are a few tracks. Have you ever listened to State songs?
I've listened to parts. I really like West Virginia.
Yeah, I like West Virginia a lot too. South Carolina. South Carolina is about a bike crash. And don't listen to that. That's a great song, and I got to hear that in concert once. And never thought I'd get anything State songs in concert, so like that was awesome. But that's one of those really bouncy driving songs that's actually really depressing because they're great at that. But what else? How do you feel about a Microphone?
Oh, I have a lot to say about Microphone.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I don't think it's a good song, but I just love the fact that it's. Well, no, because it has this quality that's a lot like these. I can't put my name on it, but like 60s almost lounge kind of like instrumental, like really soft stuff.
Yeah, sure.
Apparently, they wrote it after listening to a bunch of Lulu albums who made that kind of music. Okay. So I feel validated
in saying that. Yeah.
But it's got this like I don't know, like almost a Nancy Sinatra kind of like instrumental vibe, but it's Nancy Sinatra made a lot of like great like pop albums that are kind of, it's stuff They Might Be Giants would like adore if they don't already know it. But she worked a lot with a guy named Lee Hazelwood. It sounds like if this guy who has a weird voice sang on one of her songs instead of her. And it's just, but also not a good song.
Yeah, I thought the idea was kind of fun. That like you're saying all this stuff, and you're like, "Oh, this mic was on the whole time." That's fun. But musically, it's not great. But again, it's grown on me a little bit.
Well, it sounds like a song that would be like amazing if like a '60s pop star, someone who wanted to sound like one, recorded that song, and it'd be like, oh my goodness, that's actually kind of like, it's a catchy song that isn't entirely dumb, and the voice needs to carry that kind of song in a way that it doesn't on the, like, there are certain things you could overlook if a different person sang it, I think. And I could be completely off.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense, yeah. Sometimes I question Flansburgh's choice in voices he affects. Meanwhile, Linnell usually just does Linnell, and that usually works out pretty well.
Peak Linnell is amazing.
The other one I really wanted to ask you about, because I'm starting to really dig on it a lot, is When the Lights Come On, which I think is just a really fun, catchy track, and again has a lot of really clever writing.
It's growing on me a lot. I have no idea what it's about. If you can fill me in at all, I have my ideas.
It's probably about something larger than what it sounds like it is, but then the Giants have a lot of songs that aren't, where unless they just don't want to tell you, they'll just say no, it's what it sounds like.
Well, I thought it might be about a nuclear holocaust, so I'm not sure how much bigger you can get than that.
That's true. I think it's one of those escalation things where it starts off small and it just keeps being about like it's not necessarily the whole room the same room the whole time, right? Like and the Giants love doing that kind of thing where it's where like it starts in one place and then it morphs into something else and you realize you're actually listening to something about 3 or 4 different situations. Yeah. I think it's that kind of thing, but it also might just be that kind of like, go back to that kind of 4 of 2 thing where it's a person that just stays in a place for an absurd length of time when they could just leave at any time. And then eventually, like somehow or rather that person just didn't die. And so now the whole world is over. And that's kind of how that song played for me.
And his name was Howard Hughes. Ba-da-da-da. But that song,
I miss that kind of stuff from them.
It grew on me, but it's a song that they've started playing live, and I'm fairly confident you're going to hear it live.
Oh, cool.
And I think once you hear that kind of song live, it's going to be so much better. What hurt it was the fact that it follows The Bright Side.
Sure.
And I was kind of taken out from the album a little. But
that's fair. Yeah. It's maybe a little bit more of like a novel like kind of story song to fit on this album. It's almost like this album's like or something. If you remember that song, which I adore.
No, I do not.
Oh man, that's part of that Dial Song stuff they did a couple years ago. I forget which one it's on. I think they put it on. Is it on Glean? I think it's right toward the end of Glean, but I don't remember. But where it's what's that?
Is it AHH or like EHH?
Yes, it's AAHH with maybe even another H. I forget.
Okay.
Go listen to that. It's hysterical.
Okay. I'll check it out.
It's basically just a bunch of examples. It's almost a Weird Al song in a way. It's just a bunch of examples of like horrifying things that make you scream, and I love it so much. It's wonderful. I love the Giants because they can make me like rethink everything about the universe, and they can also just have a really silly, catchy song, and it doesn't have to be about anything. And I love that.
That is, yeah. That's, yeah. Although certainly that gets dampened a little by the fact of how morbid this particular album is.
Yeah,
it's
sure,
but then entirely.
But then that song like gets to a creepy place, but it's not the same kind of creepy, right? Like, yeah, like it's not really making you think about anything.
In terms of creepiness, I think Let's Get This Over With works on so many levels, but maybe this speaks to me. It seems like it could be a song about suicide too, in a very disturbing way.
I hadn't had that thought, but it seems really easy to turn a lot of rock songs into suicide songs.
Stairway to Heaven. Can't you see?
No, I totally see why you're saying that though. Where it's like I'm just like life itself is obligatory.
Yes, the drum beat never changes tempo. Think about that, man. It's Nixon, man. Nixon.
I need to listen to that song a little bit more closely. The main thing, just on as part of the album that surprised me is that I think it's one of the better songs, and that's unusual for a Giants album because usually their first tracks are some of the lamer tracks in the albums.
Well, the first time I listened to it all the way through, I'm just like, I think Cap might be happy with this because they finally got a good track.
Yeah, they got a good first track.
I mean, the album it doesn't suck, but great first track, guys.
No, it doesn't suck. I still stand by what I told you last week, which is I think the first half is pretty solid, and most of the not as great tracks are on the second half. But then I'm liking some of those better than I did before, and your favorite song is on the second half. So,
well, just think of it like this: I Like Fun is sort of just like The first half is great, and then there's I Like Fun. Just substitute I Like Fun with Push Back the Hands, and you have a great first side.
That's true. But isn't that really weird that the title track is one of the weird kind of clunkers?
Yeah. Yeah, it's very weird.
And it also might just be a song I don't understand, but I'm not getting my mind around it. And like I've said with a lot of other Giants things, like it sounds like they don't always have a good handle on what would work more if you just made it a B-sides. Like if that song shows up in the middle of like Cast Your Pod to the Wind, I don't think I dislike it as much. I think it's just breaking up the momentum of an album that was kind of moving.
I think hopefully that song might get explained because not to stir anything up, but Mark Maron is going to have them on his podcast.
Interesting.
When they're in LA. And he happens to be a personal hero of mine. More from like the addiction side of things, but that's unrelated to this.
Sure.
But he might bring up, because that's such a big part of his life. He might bring up the fact that there's so many pills on this album.
Yeah, which is interesting because that, as far as
so we might get some closure.
Yeah, because as far as I know, that's not really a thing that either of the Johns has really dealt with.
Yeah.
Or at least they've never talked about it if it is.
Well, I mean, like, The Else is sort of a political album.
Yeah.
In the age of Bush, and this isn't really in the age of Trump, but we're clearly in the age of, like, this giant opioid crisis.
Yeah,
so
sure.
Like
so they're writing about a thing that's happening.
With that in mind.
Sure, yeah, they're writing about an event as opposed to a personal thing for them.
Or at least it's a background thing that colorizes the song as being in this day and age. Or it could be nothing, and we're all wrong.
Yeah, but that's okay too, because sometimes things will kind of pop out that aren't intended, and it's a subconscious thing. And as I always say, you'll have pieces kind of take a life on their own. And so if you have enough evidence that you're able to kind of link all those things together, it might be there, and they might not have intended it, and it might be just as worth bringing up and talking about as if they put it there intentionally.
I agree.
Well, Jeffrey, thanks so much for joining me to talk about it. I appreciate it, man.
No problem.
Like I said, I think that's the best review. It doesn't suck.
It doesn't suck, but it could be a whole lot better. I thought it would work out more, but
Jeffrey, I really appreciate your insights and all of your encyclopedic music knowledge. You're absolutely the right person to bring in for this, and hopefully at some point I can bring you on to talk about some more music, because I love talking music, but I don't have the refined palate that you do.
Maybe the next time the Mountain Goats release an album,
you should talk to Eric.
Around the I just listened to a Sunset Tree today, and it's on point.
I want to say that's the CD that Eric sent me back before he was living here. I forget which one. He's a huge Mountain Goats fan. I don't know if you know that, but he sent me an album of theirs, and I didn't care for it. I couldn't get into it. But
before he left Twitter, I was sort of asking him what were the two best Mountain Goats albums.
Oh, okay.
And he said Tallahassee and Sunset Tree.
Maybe it was Tallahassee. It was one of those. I can't remember which one he sent me, but it's in my car. I still have it.
Maybe you can send it to me.
I want to give it
a CD, not a mail bomb.
I would never do that to you or anyone. That'd be horrible.
Okay.
Anyway, thanks a lot, everybody, for watching. We sure appreciate it. If you're watching the larger omnibus, we're gonna move on now to the next segment. And Jeffrey, come back, buddy.
I hope to.
Bye, folks.
See you.